Low, somber male narration, slow tempo, cinematic reverb tone. The storm came without warning that night. Wind tore through the canyons like a pack of wolves, howling through the cracks of the old ranch house. Inside, the fire struggled to stay alive, its glow barely cutting through the dark. The rancher stood near the doorway, coat soaked, eyes fixed on the figure lying on the floor. She wasn't supposed to be there. No one was. He'd found her half a mile from the creek, where his fence line ended and the wild began. She was hurt bad, leg torn pale as moonlight. Blood had soaked through the cloth tied around her thigh. He didn't ask who she was or what she'd done. In a land like this, questions only brought ghosts. He laid her near the fire, whispering, "You're safe here." But she shook her head. "No one's safe out here." Her voice was cracked like it had been lost for years. Every breath seemed to cost her something. When she looked up at him, he saw not fear, but acceptance, as if she already knew what was coming. He tore his sleeve, tried to bind the wound tighter. The blood kept coming. The old boards beneath them darkened. She gasped, eyes locking onto his. "Please, just make it quick." The words froze him. He'd heard that plea once before, long ago, in a different war, in a different kind of silence. He stood there, trembling not from fear, but from the weight of choice. The rifle leaned against the wall. The wind outside wailed like the dead. He wanted to believe he could save her, that maybe the bleeding would stop, that maybe dawn would bring a doctor riding through the dust. But the truth in her eyes cut through every lie he tried to tell himself. She smiled faintly, or maybe it was a shiver. "You're a kind man," she whispered. "That's why it has to be you." He shook his head. No, I can't." She reached for his hand. Her fingers were cold, too cold. "You don't understand," she said softly. "They'll come for me if you don't, and they'll come for you next." His breath caught. "Who will?" Her eyes darted to the window. Beyond the glass, lightning split the sky. For a moment, he thought he saw shapes in the rain, dark, tall, moving against the horizon. But when he blinked, they were gone. He turned back to her, but she was fading fast. Her hand slipped from his. Her lips trembled with one last breath. "Please, make it quick." And that's when he did the unthinkable. He set the rifle aside. He didn't pull the trigger, not yet. Instead, he picked her up and carried her outside into the storm. The rain poured cold and hard, soaking them both. Lightning flashed across the plains, and in that blinding light he saw them, 3 dark figures standing at the edge of the ridge, unmoving, watching. His heart stopped. They were tall, far taller than any man should be. Their faces hidden beneath wide-brimmed hats, their shapes half swallowed by the storm. The woman stirred weakly in his arms. "It's too late," she whispered. "They've found us." He held her tighter, shielding her from the rain. "Who are they?" He shouted over the wind. Her answer came like a ghost in the thunder. "The ones who never die." And then she went still. The storm broke. The figures vanished. But the rancher knew one thing for certain. Something had changed on that land tonight. Something old had awakened. And whatever it wasn't done with him yet. Dawn crept over the plains like a wounded animal, dragging pale light through the fog. The storm had passed, but the earth still trembled from its memory. The rancher stood alone behind his barn, shovel in hand, staring at the narrow hole he dug through the night. The woman lay wrapped in canvas beside it, her face calm now, as if the storm had carried her somewhere gentler. He whispered a prayer he half remembered from childhood. Something about mercy, something about rest, and lowered her into the ground. Each scoop of dirt fell with a dull thud, soft at first, then heavier, until the sound disappeared completely. When he was done, he placed a small stone on top, the way his father used to mark graves on the trail. Then he took off his hat and let the wind dry the sweat on his brow. The prairie was silent again. Too silent. That was when he heard it. The faint creak of saddle leather, the distant rhythm of hooves echoing off the canyon walls. He looked toward the ridge. 3 riders emerged from the mist, moving slow, side by side. Their horses were black as soot. Their coats dripped with rain, though the sky was clear. He reached for his rifle, but something inside him whispered not to. The riders stopped at the fence line. The one in the middle dismounted. Even from where he stood, the rancher could see the man was tall, impossibly tall. The brim of his hat shadowed his face, but his voice carried through the air like a church bell. "You buried what was ours." The rancher swallowed hard. "She was dying." The rider tilted his head. "She was already dead." A chill ran through the rancher's spine. He took a step back, boots sinking in the mud. "Who are you?" The rider's answer came with a smile he couldn't see, but somehow felt. "We're the debt collectors of the desert, the keepers of unfinished bargains." Lightning cracked far off, though no clouds remained. The other two riders shifted, horses stamping restlessly. The air thickened, humming like a furnace before the flame. "She made a deal," the tall one said. "Long before your time, you interfered. You carried her across the line?" The rancher's voice shook. "I was only trying to help. That's what they all say." The ground trembled. The stone he'd placed on her grave began to rattle. He watched frozen as the earth split just enough to show a thin seam of light beneath. Then the glow faded and the wind stopped completely. The rider turned his horse, voice low and final. "You've taken her burden. It's yours now. The land will remember." And with that, the three rode away, vanishing into the heat haze like smoke dissolving into sunlight. The rancher stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of nothing. The wind didn't return. The birds didn't sing. Only the faint hum of the earth, as if something beneath it had started breathing. That night he sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, eyes on the horizon. The grave behind the barn glowed faintly under the moon, pulsing like a heartbeat. He didn't sleep. Couldn't, because every so often through the whispering grass he heard her voice again, soft, pleading, carried by the wind that should have been still. "Please, just make it quick." And somewhere in that endless dark, a horse neighed in reply.